Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the summary for the day of 966 for the 16th of October. And major development over at the Bakhmut front. So we're going to jump straight to Bakhmut front first because there's a surprising geolocation. So this is Bakhmut and this is CHASIV. No, this is the place where I keep saying that the Russians should not attack. But there is a surprise geolocation in the south of CHASIV. So Russian forces have been detected at this place. I'm not sure what is this place for. And they basically have appeared to have broke through the southern part of CHASIV. And this comes after the Ukrainians first have acknowledged that the Russians have some success at this junction. And I thought that, I say that, no, I don't think the Russians could make much further due to the forest around. It doesn't look like a very defendable place. And the Russians just proved me wrong. They have broke through, geolocated, look like they are very comfortable at this southern part of CHASIV. And this is a massive development which means the Russians can now start to attack into the different districts of CHASIV and wreak havoc in the south. And it's going to be very complicated for the Ukrainians to defend because now the Russians are also in the streets and forest region. So this is a major development. If you can see that from this position, the Russians can attack straight into the settlement around here, and they could also attack up to the other settlement where there's a lot more forest, which also will make the life of the Ukrainians much more harder because once the Russians go into the forest, similar situation, vice versa, it's harder to detect. So the Russians have made this crazy development. Fighting is also reported at CHASIV, generally speaking. Exactly, we do not know exactly where. And fighting is reported as Tuposhki. I wonder if Tuposhki refers to this breakthrough by the Russians. Might actually be related. Nearby, there was another geolocation of Russian airstrike, showing that the Russians are conducting support operations through the Air Force and to help the land operation. So these some rather very big developments over in the Bakhmut front, and I'm really curious what the Russians going to do next. The northern side, there's nothing else. In the southern side of Bakhmut, there is fighting reported towards Diliyevka. So this is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. In the rear position, there is artillery, counter-artillery action. I wonder if this is related to the reports by the Russian Defense Ministry, because sometimes it may not be a ground offensive, it may just be shelling. So that's all from the Bakhmut front. And the next one, I want to jump straight to the Kursk front, because the Kursk front, there is also some major developments. It seems that the Ukrainians may have sent in reinforcement. According to Ryba, they say that they have saw a armored personnel carrier, FV432, and they say that this vehicle or this type of armor is by right in service of a separate presidential brigade. And however, this brigade was not supposed to be fighting in this front. They are not known to be here, so they are currently not sure if the entire brigade is currently operating here, which means it's a reinforcement, or could they be just sending this armored vehicle to a new brigade as a replacement for the lost vehicles. So there is a high chance that the Ukrainians have sent in reinforcement, because there is intensifying Ukrainian counter operations around this area, particularly over in this western flank where the Ukrainians are counterattacking over at Novo-Ivanovka, Zelenishai, Lyubimovka, as well as Nizhyn Klin. So the Ukrainians are heavily counterattacking the Russians around here, while the Russians are trying to push at Novo-Ivanovka, Zelenishai, and Lyubimovka. There is, of course, no possible pincer that is currently happening around here. Possible, because the Russian mapping mapped it as such. But tentatively, I have some doubts. I feel like maybe it's not exactly like how it was portrayed through mapping. Maybe the Russian forces are there, but not in the way that a pincer would have operated. So but we're not exactly sure what the situation right now. So some major developments around here. And just coming back to the Grushkovo sector, at the Grushkovo region, the Russians are still trying to push the Ukrainians over at Novi Put. According to the Russian information, the Ukrainians are holding the line. south of the railway line. So there's actually a railway line around here. This railway line runs straight into Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are holding the line more or less south of the railway line, and they are holding positions around here. So we will continue to monitor the situation. By the way, the APC was detected. This FV432 is detected around Grushkovo sector. So we shall see, how this continue to develop. It looks like the Ukrainians are definitely, trying to double down, triple down on this Kursk offensive, or at least holding the grounds at Kursk front. They're definitely defending this place as if it's part of Ukraine. So it's very, very interesting that the Ukrainians are making all these decisions while they're losing grounds within Ukraine themselves. So maybe there is a wider macro strategy coming to all these things. So we shall wait and see how Zelensky going to continue to operate the war. But so in the northern flank, there is still fighting reported in Malaya Lognia. The Russians are allegedly attacking Malaya Lognia from somewhere, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And some major updates over in the northern flank around Kremyannoe. So Russian forces geolocated to have engaged. So there's an armored vehicle that blindly drive towards a Ukrainian tank. And it kind of surprised the Ukrainian tank as well. The Ukrainian tank was probably also thinking, is this our friends, for a long time? Until they decided that, no, I don't think it is. And they fired almost point blank, around less than 10 meters away at this armored vehicle and utterly destroying it. Somehow the passengers survived. And they run into the forest. According to the story from the Russian side, they run into the forest and actually took out the tank, the lone Ukrainian tank that was holding the position around here, which is kind of a surprise. So, but of course, there's a Russian information. Maybe it is a coup. Maybe the soldiers are all killed off. But no, whatever it is, this geolocation by the Ukrainian side does shows that the Russians have at least control on the west from this position. And from this, I made a judgment call to give the Kremyannoe, which I have believed to be under Russian control for a long time, to the Russians. So the Russians have definitely made some, no, not definitely, but no, I think the Russians have made this progress around here and serve as a base as the Russians kind of pushed out. In yesterday's situation report, we have reported that the Ukrainians were attacking at Ogovka region. So which is why I left this area as under Ukrainian control. If not, I would have drawn it all the way here. Because the Ukrainians did attack around the Ogovka region, currently this situation remains to be pretty much a gray zone. We will have to wait. Hopefully more geolocations and more video footages can come out and allow us to clear up the front line around here. Tentatively, this double mapping, this parallel universe is massive, huge. So, but there's a high chance the Russians actually have control all of this due to the severe fighting in this area here, where the Ukrainians focus will all be around this Novo-Ivanovka, Tostilok, Lyubimovka region. As such, the Russians could have the opportunity to actually take over everything around here. There's a possibility. But let's wait and see how this continue to develop. We need more intel before we can make a more firm judgment as to what actually is happening around here. Over in the southern flank, there is still clashes at Blakovo. According to the Russian information, the Russians still have this position around the Sel River, and the Ukrainians are counterattacking around this area here. Russian Defense Ministry is reporting that they are fighting at Plikovo. So the exact front line is pretty unclear. We just wait and see how this progress. We move on away from the Kursk front. Over the Kharkiv front, there is also some developments. Ukrainian forces are on the counter over the Lipsy sector, capturing the forest in the northeast of Lipsy. Ukrainian forces have some success around here. This is reported by the Ukrainian information, and it looks pretty reliable. So this is a capture due to them showing the footage of the operation. Russian forces are also operating at Lipsy. So we shall continue to wait and see how this develop. There's also Russian shelling attacking Ukrainian forces over at Mali Prokody and Veliki Prokody. probably just shelling, so nothing's particularly special about this. There's no news regarding the Ukrainian incursion into Zuralevka. So it's also a bit weird that there is actually no mention by the Russian Defense Ministry about this. So let's wait for more information on this situation. The Russians are attacking in the region of Starizia, but otherwise that's all we know. There's nothing else that we know around this sector. No more news regarding Voschansk. So yeah, that's all from the Kharkiv front. Over at the Kupiansk front, Russian forces are allegedly attacking Kusharivka and Stepova Novoselivka. There's probably shelling at Kupiansk. They also could be Russians attacking Kupiansk. At this moment, I'm still putting it as shelling because I'm not sure. Because there is no mapping to support that the Russians are indeed just next to Holubivka, just across the river at Holubivka, which would then be an attack on Kupiansk itself. So tentatively, we don't have this information, so we cannot just assume that's the case for now. There is geolocation of guided missile strike on Ukrainian positions, just off Khrushchevka. So let's continue to wait and see how this continue to develop. Over in the Pischane front, there is continued Russian operations around here, fighting towards Novo-Osinove, Glushkivka. In the Pischane region, and also at Berestove towards Lozova. Geolocation Russian forces at Stemakivka, so within the border that we have already drawn. So that's pretty much where we have. So that's all from the Pischane front. We move further south, over at the northern side of the Svetove front. This is Svetove. Russian forces are fighting at Vishneve and towards Zeleny High. Vishneve is mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Russia's Defense Ministry is talking about Zeleny High. So this probably in between these two settlements. This is probably where the fighting is currently happening. So let's see how this continues to develop. There is the difference because the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned Vishneve as captured, which is not acknowledged by the Ukrainian side just yet. We move further south. In the southern flank of the Svetove front, Russian forces are fighting at Korekivka, Makievka, and Nevske. And particularly major news at Nevske, Russian forces have captured Nevske. This comes after the final geolocation, confirming the entire northern street around here has been fully captured by the Russian forces. And this also triggered the Russian Defense Ministry to announce the capture. The Russian Defense Ministry in the yesterday's report have mentioned about Nevsky as well. This comes 2 weeks later, than 2 weeks after the Ukrainians first said that the Russians have captured Nevsky, which is interesting. But with this geolocation, the Ukrainian claim of anything east of Nevsky is now invalidated, which means that the Russians have made this massive capture around this area here. Clearly, the Russians have already mapped this as under Russian control, just that the Ukrainians have not acknowledged this just yet. So that's all from the Nevske. Nevske capture major developments, and I don't think there's much settlement left along the Zerebets River. So the Zerebets River, everything on north is already captured. Makievka is more or less captured. Now Nevske is captured. Further south, we are talking about Novosadove, Terny, Yampolivka. Yeah, this the river. This is the only river that the Ukrainians. This is the only part of the Zerebets River that the Ukrainians are controlling right now. So everything north from the Nevske onward is all under Russian control. So pretty bad situation, for the Ukrainians developing around here. So Russian Defense Ministry, the Russian forces at Crimea front attacked Terny, Torske, as well as Dibrova. So that's all we know. So nothing new about this area. We move into the Sivas front. So at the Sivas front, we have multiple geolocation of Ukrainian forces all over. So there is all these shelling reports, but this is the latest geolocation done by military summaries geolocator. Zvenivka, south of Sivas, north of Ivano-Darivka, and then there's I think this a drone strike in the north of Sperne, and then another TOS strike. So this strike is is pretty significant because this caused massive invalidation of mappings, from Surya Maps and the DiffGen. So this field, that means these field positions Ukraine is definitely still there. And if you look at the geolocation of the TOS strike, which means that the Ukrainians should have full control of the entrenchment over here, the heavy fortification around here. So which means that the entire of Volkan is definitely still under Ukrainian control. So this is pretty damning. So however, the Russians did seems to do a major, almost to me like a suicide charge towards the Ukrainian trench line, tree line around here. So they basically storm all the way there, and then the footage show massive amount of vehicles getting destroyed. So we have this very long tail showing the Russians in this area here, but it does not necessarily mean that they're going to have a firm control around this area. It doesn't mean that they have control around the hilly region. So take this with a pinch of salt. The attack, this offensive operation, this assault looks like a failure, at least based on the video footage, because it's dropped by the Ukrainian side. So let's wait and see, whether we have more information about this. So that's it from this region at Sivers, and we move to Bakhmut, which we already covered. So we go into the New York front. At the New York front, we have fighting reported at Sukabalka, Nelipivka, Thorax. There is some fighting reported or shelling reported at Ivanopilia. So that's all in terms of the strategic situation. There is a geolocation of Ukrainian forces at Delievka, inside Thorax, center of Thorax, in the Zabalka district of Thorax, as well as in the middle of the junction between Nelipivka and Zalizne. So a few of these caused some frontline change. So this one led to the invalidation of this claim by Surya Maps. This one shows that the Ukrainians may have retaken control around part of Zabalka. So that's interesting around here. The junction one may show that the Ukrainians have taken back most of the Nelipivka and eastern part of Nelipivka, all these open grounds around here. On Twitter, someone told me that this one might be a very old footage. So I did mention in my report on Twitter and Telegram that take this frontline change with a massive pinch of salt, because the problem with the New York front has always been the heavy fog of war. We really do not exactly know where the front line is, because of a lot of conflicting reports and also the lack of information coming from this front line. So we will just have to continue to wait for more information, but tentatively I can only work with what I have. And if this is what we have right now, then this is what we have right now. So we just going to continue to wait for more intel to drop, and we'll be able to do more. Interestingly is the north of New York. So this is the area that the Ukrainians still refuse to give up previously, so that they can continue to claim that New York is not captured. But the latest mapping from the Ukrainian mapping from Deep State UA shows that the Russian forces have taken basically the rest of New York, which means that the Russian forces should have fully captured New York by that measure. But the Ukrainian side, the Ukrainian mapping did not mention that New York has fallen. So that's very interesting. They with their mapping, clearly New York has fallen, and the Russians have firm presence around the eastern part of Nelipivka. So this is the Ukrainian version of reality. Russian version of reality is, of course, they are much further at Leonidivka. So let's see how this continue to develop. So Nelipivka, as mentioned before, was first claimed to be captured by the Russian sources on the 22nd of September. So, and the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned it on the 30th of September. So, yeah, we still don't have information to confirm this. So let's see how this develop. And we move into the Pokrov front. So at the Pokrov front, we have fighting reported over at Vozdevizhenka, Promin, and Krutia. So, but that's all. It seems like the Russian focus is not around here. It seems like they are not focusing on pushing towards Minograd or Pokrov right now. The main focus of attack seems to be further in the south, where you can see a lot more fighting icons around here. So, in the Selidove region, the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned Vishneve in their reports for this sector. I'm not sure how the Russians are attacking here. Maybe it's coming from the north, maybe coming from the south. I'm not so sure. The Russians have made some advance in the northeast of Selidove, according to the Ukrainian mapping, but very minor. And the latest geolocation shows that the Russians are pushing west in the south of Selidove. So not sure where are they going right here. They are continuing to move westward. So very, very interesting situation around here. The actual battle for Selidove doesn't seem like have started. It still seems like yeah, the Russians are pretty happy with the line right now after the capture of Mikhailivka. So I think they are still posturing to see how best to attack Selidove, or maybe they want a bigger envelopment around Selidove before they do a major offensive into the city. So further south, in the Khernik region, the Russians are also making a lot of effort around here. Fighting is reported at Sukharine, towards Novoselidivka, Ismailivka, Khernik, Zeleny, Druhi, and Zoriane. And the Ukrainian mapping have shown that the Russians have at least taken this tree line between Novoselidivka and Ismailivka, which will allow the Russians to attack either side, but we shall see how these continue to develop. There's a major airstrike at this farm or whatever over at Novoselidivka. So that's all for the Khernik region. Over at the Kurakove sector, Russian forces are attacking towards Kurakove. Russian forces are also attacking at Georgievka and Masymelinivka. And one of the latest geolocations show the Russians have made some massive advance at Masymelinivka. The Russians have been geolocated at the government building here, and this confirms at least Russian advance in the center of Masymelinivka. So this is actually this is a dated video geolocation coming from the 11th of October. So it is around a week ago, but yeah, the geolocation just came out recently. So let's see how this continue to go on for this area here. Then we move further south to the Vodiane Konstantinivka region. Russian forces are fighting at Konstantinivka, Katerinivka, Yelizavetivka, Vodiane, and towards Bohov-Yevlenka. Ilinka was mentioned according to the Russian Defense Ministry. I'm not so sure how the Russians reached there, because unless they are suggesting that the Russians have taken Antonivka and then they are pushing towards Ilinka. So I'm not sure if the Russians actually captured Antonivka, because how do you reach Ilinka without Antonivka? So I'm not so sure. So let's continue to just wait for more information. It could be maybe it's just shelling. There's also a possibility. So let's wait and see. The Ukrainian mapping have shown the Russians have taken the rest of the tree line on the eastern part of Katerinivka. So just some small changes. So the Battle of Katerinivka, interestingly, still have not started. I thought that it would have already begun by now, but it didn't. So yeah, so that's it. Over at the Velika Novosilka sector, the Russian forces are fighting towards Velika Novosilka, at Zolotaneva, and towards Novoyukrenka. Otherwise, that's all. That's all we have around here, and we move towards the Zaporizhia front. Shelling is reported at Temerivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So otherwise, nothing over there. Over at the rest of the Zaporizhia front, we have fighting reported at Malatomashka, towards Orikhiv, and Kayamsky. So it's still the sporadic attacks that we have been reporting on a daily basis. So I would not going to be thinking much about the Zaporizhia region for now. And we move on to the Kherson front. At the Kherson front, we have shelling reported at Zolota Balka and Kreshchenivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, there's some shelling around there. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry just simply mentioned about fighting at the Pridniprovsky direction. So otherwise, that's all we have. So this is the summary for the day of 966 for the 16th of October. So do press the like button, subscribe, and the orange mapping which you might think a bit confusing. These are all mapping by THRU maps, which I put it in a different color because I'm trying to track what's happening, whether the map can be used. But because of all this invalidation here over at the Nevske, and then we have more over in thorax, I just going to delete all of them. So you're not going to see the orange mapping tomorrow. So just to let you know, this was this is Transnistria. So no, yeah. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next update.